Today we are week 7 of look at the Sermon on the Mount. We're going to be talking about treasures in heaven, building up treasures in heaven. This has been an interesting sermon to develop over the last few weeks because it does stand in contrast to numerous pressures within our culture currently. We're going to go on a journey. In fact, I have this even on the screen for you. Today we're going to go on a journey. There will be 3 stops on this journey, 3 stops. The first one is this: we will make the case for work. Why work is important. Make the case for work. The second stop is this: we're going to make the case for right work. Make the case for right work. And then the third thing we will do is we will show how the desire for right work will one day be fulfilled. Okay, so we're going to make the case for work. For work. You are built to work. The second thing we're going to do is we're going to make the case for right work. The third thing we're going to do is we're going to show how the desire for right work will one day be fulfilled. So let's begin this journey, the case for work. A few weeks ago, one of my sons came home, and we were having dinner together, and we were asking, we do this often in the evenings, we'll sit around the table, and we'll do like highs and lows, so best and worst thing that happened today. And so we were doing highs and lows around the dinner table like we often do, and I'm asking the question, all right, kids, best thing that happened today, and they all share, and I go, worst thing that happened today. And one of my sons, this is a few weeks ago, one of my sons said, hey, there is a pizza party coming up in my class, and I'm kind of nervous about it, Dad. I said, why? And he says to me, he goes, well, the pizza party is for the kids that have done enough of their math fact sheets. So I guess they got like homework throughout the year that they were supposed to be doing. And if they did all their homework, those that worked hard at the end of the year, we're going to get this big pizza party for people that did the work. And my wife goes, did you do the work? And he goes, no. And then he said this, he goes, but you don't think she's really going to not let us be in the pizza party too, right? Like, that wouldn't be fair. Talk about bait for a parent. And so I decided just to stay quiet on it and see how this thing played out. So a couple of weeks go by, they finish up the year, they have their big pizza party. The end of the day happens, and I know it's the day of the pizza party. We get back home, we have dinner that night, we're sitting around the table, highs and lows, best thing that happened today, worst thing that happened today. We're going around the table, and sure enough, worst thing that happened today. My teacher's not fair. She didn't let me get into the pizza party. And without even jumping in myself, my wife pounced like a hungry cheetah on that. Right in the conversation, she goes, you know what wouldn't have been fair? And then called the kid by name. So you know what wouldn't have been fair are all those kids that did what they were supposed to do and worked really hard, and then it wasn't any reward for them. That wouldn't be fair. And he just crossed his arms and sat down in his chair and didn't move. The table was really quiet except for Dad chuckling across the table. I thought it was kind of funny. But here's the thing that's interesting. Even my kids know. My kids, deep down, they know that everybody gets a trophy, everybody wins, participation trophy stuff. They even know deep down that if you didn't really earn it, it's not really worth anything. They even know that. I can give you an example. In my boys' room, they have a trophy wall. All right, it's a whole wall full of things that they've achieved over the years. Now, my kids have played soccer and football and basketball and baseball, and they've done karate. They've done all kinds of sports over the years. Now, a lot of these sports have had participation trophies. There have been some of these trophies they have gotten where our family's been on the road most of the summer. So there's like 10 games. We're gone for half of them. They're only there for a few. And even when they are there, they're not really carrying a lot of the load for some of the things they've done. And then at the end, they get a trophy. Now, in that moment, they love it and they're excited. And they take it home and they show it off and they want me to send a picture to Grandma and Grandpa and they put it up on the trophy wall. But as the years go by, do you know what trophies come off the trophy wall? I don't have to say anything about it. It's the ones they know they didn't really earn. I don't have to say anything about it. I don't have to push on it. I mean, it's built into them to know this trophy really doesn't mean anything. And do you know what's replaced the trophies for participation, the trophies that really didn't mean anything? Now, I've not pushed this. I've not said anything. They do this on their own in their room. The things that have come off the trophy wall have been the participation trophies over the years, the ones that end up broken, the ones that end up being thrown away, the ones that, because they don't really mean anything, and they know deep down they don't really mean anything. Now, in the moment when they're really little, they love it and they're excited, but as they get older, they realize, And what's replaced that everybody gets a trophy wall are things like really complicated Lego sets they've built. I didn't ask them to do it. I didn't tell them to do it. But really slowly, I've watched these trophies come down, the participation trophies come down, and I've watched like a Lego set go up that one of my kids got for Christmas that was really big and complicated, and it took him a few weeks to get it done, and finding pieces and having to go back over the instructions and build it, and it didn't fit together right, so I had to go unbuild it and rebuild it again right, and all this time that went into the Lego set. You know what made the trophy wall? The Lego set. Do you know what he's proud of? The Lego set. I didn't have to teach this to them. Deep down inside, they know that worth and work kind of go together. They kind of go together. I'm going to write about this in the paper coming up in the next couple of weeks, and I want to read this. It's not in the paper yet. It will be. But I want to read this because I want to word it exactly right. So you got to turn on your thinking cap for just a moment as we make the case for work, all right? Work and personal worth are intricately entwined. When people are rewarded for work they didn't do, it can confuse personal worth. The natural byproduct is entitlement. The problem with entitlement, now you got to follow closely, the problem with entitlement is the inevitable perspective of I deserve without the work. This creates people who want more and more without the personal fulfillment that comes from good work. Without putting these two things together, there are people unsatisfied, and instead of putting in a good day's work, they just demand more stuff, more free stuff that doesn't have personal worth and true fulfillment attached to it because they never earned it. They end up very empty people screaming for more, furious at those they believe stand in the way of their more. They are blind to the reality that the means in which they received things is why they can't enjoy them. Did you catch that? They are blind to the reality that the means, the way in which they received things is the very reason why they can't enjoy them. From the very beginning of time, God worked to create, and when he finished the work, he said it was very good, Genesis 1:31. Even before sin entered the world, Adam was to work the garden he was placed in. Before sin, he was called to work it. Literally, to foster growth and improve, to be responsible for it. Genesis 1:26-31. Even God gave Christ to do the work of salvation, and we are to trust in him and follow the ways and commands of Christ. We're supposed to do what Christ asks us to do. John 3:16, Matthew 28:18-20. Even the promise of heaven in Isaiah 65:17-25. In heaven is a right relationship established between work and worth, repairing the breakdown that happened in Genesis 3. In our minds, for some reason, when you look at like pop culture or art, we almost see heaven as like this place where we're playing on a harp, sitting on a cloud, just waiting for the billions of years to go by. That's false. The way heaven is painted, especially in Isaiah, the prophecy of the new heavens and the new earth, it is painted as us finding, think of it, we are people, we're like cogs, and we're trying to find that right fit. And even now, for some of you, you may be in a job right now, and deep down inside, you know, I don't really fit here. Your work may be high school, and in school right now, you're going, I don't really fit here. Now, the assumption is you're going to leave and get a job and go, oh, I fit here. But the truth that all of us adults really know is that feeling of it's not quite a right fit is never going to go away. And the promise of heaven is our perfect work finding our perfect worth and all working well. You're given tasks that you love, that you're created to do, and they are fulfilling and wonderful, and it operates properly, giving you right worth. Work and worth go together. With the case for work being made, we are not supposed to abandon work. We're supposed to know that we are created to be active beings. Even before the sin we were created to be, even before sin came into the world, we're created to be active beings. And even when we make it into eternity, we are created to be active beings. So this leads to the next part, the case for right work. The case for work in general, now the case for right work. Matthew 6:19 is where we're going to begin today. Lay up treasures in heaven. Do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal. All right, we're going to pause there for a moment. In our world, we hear things like, don't forget to love yourself. Don't forget to take care of yourself. Though we are, and I get this, I mean, even my wife the other day told me, you've got to get better rhythms in life. I mean, every once in a while, my wife is my best compass. It really is true. Like, I just am unaware of even things in my own life at times, and my wife has this way of stepping in and going, hey, dummy, pay attention. Look, you've been working all the time, every day. I mean, if I'm not at work, I'm at home on my computer trying to email people back or, get a hold of them or set up appointments, meetings. I'm just going and going and going. And it was like 11:30, and I had to get up really early the next morning to drive up to Marion to help teach a class. And I was working long into the night, and my wife stopped, and she was like, you have got to stop this madness. Like, she knows when I'm pushing it too far. So we are supposed to be able to balance things well. That does matter. We are to take care of ourselves in a right way. However, it is possible to love yourself wrongly. I love the way John Piper says it. You don't have to learn self-love. However, you have to learn to love yourself rightly. What does this look like? Warren Wiersbe says it like this: as we pursue things and we work in this world, nowhere did Jesus magnify poverty or criticize the legitimate getting of wealth. So people that get wealth in a right way and then handle their wealth rightly. God made all things, including food, clothing, and precious metals. Wiersbe goes on to say, God has declared that all things he has made are good, Genesis 1:31. God knows that we need certain things in order to live, Matthew 6:32. In fact, he has given us richly all things to enjoy, 1 Timothy 6:17. It is not wrong to possess things, but it is wrong for things to possess us. It is not wrong to possess things, but it is wrong for things to possess us. When your stuff has your heart, there's a problem. Now, this brings up an interesting question, especially in our modern Western world. Where is the line between possessing things to take care of ourselves and our loved ones? And when do we really get to the point where those things possess us? Now, I've noticed this. When I was in youth ministry, I had the opportunity to get to travel quite a bit on missions trips. So I take the students and we go all over the place. And you would visit like third world poor countries. And it was interesting, their like bottom line, this is what's required to live, perspective. And then you get back to the U.S. and I'd hang out with some of these students of mine that grow up in really great homes. And their like bottom line perspective of what it takes to live. Pastor Mike, my parents hate me. They won't let me have an iPhone. Like, that's bare minimum. Like, if you don't have an iPhone, you might as well be starving in the middle of a desert somewhere, because that's the same. Right? Pastor Mike, I wanted my dad. I was telling him, that I just have to get these, special Nike super shoes for basketball this year, and he wouldn't buy the $150 pair for me. Boo-hoo, right? But in this kid's mind, he has somehow convinced himself that that's bottom line requirement for living. The problem is, things may possess us and we may not even know it. And we may be raising kids to be possessed by things and not even know that we're doing it. So, material things might possess you if, all right, you ready for this? Oh, the next few minutes are just going to be making people mad. That's great. Okay, material things might possess you if. Material things might possess you if you need something new, not because the old one is broken, but because you have grown bored of it. Bored of it. Think a new phone, new car, new clothes, new shoes. You don't really need new. You're just bored of what you had. Oh, Americans. Your moments of elation, material things might possess you. They might possess you if your moments of elation are tied into acquiring new things. You may need to retrain what excites you and fast from feeding wrong desires. Are you ready for this? Are you teaching your kids by your conduct that stuff is what makes you feel good? We need to practice celebrating eternally valuable things. Maybe we need to visibly demonstrate excitement when our child wants to give to the poor. So imagine in your mind, maybe what you need to do is downplay the things that you know are temporary, right? So if you have a child that comes in and says, hey, I was in Sunday school and they were talking about wanting to support some of the missionaries or buy Bibles for kids in Africa, and I would like to give some of my allowance to that. Maybe that's what you, instead of like, touchdown Colts, Indianapolis 500, this is awesome, the greatest thing in the world. Maybe we need to put our celebration where it ought to be. Maybe we need to practice right celebration and fast from the wrong areas. And when our kids want to help feed the poor, help give to that, maybe that's what we should go crazy about and go, man, that's awesome. I'm so proud of you. That's a right heart, man. That's incredible. And maybe we need to downplay celebration things like new toys and new iPhones and like, oh, we are going to get you a new phone because your old one broke. But you know what? It's just a phone. And the reality is, in a couple of months, you're not even really going to care that much about this one either. But what I am excited about is, remember when you were talking to me about wanting to get Bibles for the missionaries? That's awesome. Do you get it? Maybe what you need to do is practice right celebration in your home to train in righteousness. I was noticing the problem even in my own home of this. I got a new TV as I was thinking about this sermon illustration. I got a new TV a couple of months ago, and it was like a Costco on sale. You know, it's not like a super cool one. I think it's 47 inches, right? So not like the big monster awesome ones. But I was pretty pumped. It was my first high definition TV that I've ever had. So the 1080p, they even have it higher now. Now they've got like 4K, 9K. I don't even know what's out there now. High 3D definition. Now, the TV shows can like put smell at you. I have no idea what's out there, right? Yeah, that's great, especially watching like horse races. That's wonderful. Okay, no. I got my new TV, and it was like a 47, 1080p, and I'm in the house, and I'm like, this is awesome. Kids come in here, and we're like watching different samples of movies, and I was thinking about this in light of reading this. And I thought, man, even in my own home, I have celebrated higher things that are less valuable. And I haven't celebrated enough the things that are truly valuable. I'm guilty of this. When I was in high school, one of my best friends, still to this day, we're accountability partners. He's one of my accountability partners. He happened to grow up. We went to high school together and went to college together, undergraduate together. Graduate school, we ended up parting ways, doing different things. But all the way through, so high school, undergraduate together, really, really good friends, awesome guy. He grew up in a very wealthy family. His dad was like the partner at an accountant firm, and they had done really, really well. He had a beautiful house that was like sitting on a golf course. Just an incredible family. Now, his parents were also really, really godly people. Really godly people. In fact, I would consider his dad like another dad to me. We were at their house so much. His mom was like another mom to me. Amazing people that really did love Jesus. Now, my good friend, as we went through high school and got into college, he was convinced that he was going to have to pay for college himself. Even though his parents had lots of resources, he was convinced he had to pay for college himself. And so my buddy and I ended up rooming together. We were separate for a while. We actually jumped around a couple of different guys. But we got a job together working the nights as a janitor. And so in the evenings, so think about this in your mind. In the evenings, we would do schoolwork in the dorms. After we were done with schoolwork, we'd go to bed and sleep for a couple of hours, and then we'd get up at like 3:30 or 4 in the morning and go and clean office buildings before classes would start the next morning. Night in, night out, over and over and over again. I actually went through a season where I was like depressed. I think it's because I had no sleep. I mean, literally trying to pay for school to the best of my ability. So my buddy and I go all the way through working as hard as we can to pay for school, to pay it off, to do what we can. We get all the way through, we graduate. His graduation present, his dad walks up and says, "Your graduation present? I'm paying for all your college." And he was emotional. My buddy was emotional. And his dad, in fact, I wrote this down. I didn't get this quote exactly right, but it's basically this. This really godly dad said this: the reason he waited to pay his debt was because he cared more about developing godly character than his son's comfort. He cared more about developing godly character than his son's comfort. He cared more about developing godly character than his son's comfort. And so week in, week out, over and over and over again, we got up and worked middle of the night, cleaning office buildings. We even got fired from one of the buildings because we did a really bad job one time. It was terrible. We had to learn we had to do it harder because we needed the money. Because he cared more about developing godly character. See, what happens in our culture is when you raise your children and you just give them stuff and give them stuff and give them stuff and give them stuff and give them stuff, when it comes without right work, it doesn't come with worth. And their self-worth doesn't increase, though they're getting more stuff. They know deep down they didn't deserve it. They know deep down they haven't worked hard for it. They know deep down that's true. And then what you do is you accidentally teach them that getting more stuff is what might make you feel better, and then they fall into this entitlement trap where they just want more and more and more because they're trying to fulfill what would take a lot less to fulfill if they actually worked for it. Do you see it? Because as a youth pastor, the teenager who works really hard and buys a really junky car, and then works really hard to fix the car up, and then works really hard to get it painted, and works really hard to get all the way done, drives a car that at most is worth what, $5,000-$6,000? And he cares for that thing, and he has value in it, and he's proud of it, and he takes care of it. And the kid whose parents, I literally had this, the kid whose parents buy him a Porsche, trashes it, and burns out the engine because no worth is in it. When you watch TV and you can't stand the entitlement generation that balks at the soldiers, realize you might be raising the generation that's doing that. Okay, now that I'm done making you mad at me, this leads to another interesting question. What should I work hard in life for if I shouldn't be pursuing more stuff? Okay, this raises another question. What should I be working hard for in life if I shouldn't be working hard for more stuff? See, the way our culture plays out when you watch commercials and TV is you got to work harder because you're trying to acquire more things. I got to go and work really hard because I got to get a nicer house and a nicer car and a bigger this and a better that, and I got to pay for more of this, and so I want to work harder to go on better vacations that are further away and more expensive and more and more. You got to work harder to get more money for more things. But if that's not why you should be working hard, why should you be working hard? That's a good question. Well, isn't that great? It's right here in the Bible too. Matthew 6, 20 through 21. But lay up for yourselves, now notice this, but lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven where neither moth nor rust destroys and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Now notice this tie in here with treasure, what you are working for. Notice the tie with that and your heart. Okay, so heart, treasure, tie, bringing this together. It's about your heart. It's always been about your heart. Whose kingdom do you want to build, yours or God's? Yours or God's? Whose kingdom do you want to build? Now, I don't just mean like this. I'm not talking about all the building stuff is going to go away. I'm talking about the kingdom of God in your own kids' hearts. I'm talking about the kingdom of God in your family, in your neighborhood. Being a kingdom bringer of the ways and nature and truth of God into your home. Dr. John Piper, okay, one more one that's going to sting, okay? This is just, it just stinks. When I read it, it hurt me. It may even made me rethink about this. But Dr. John Piper, prolific author, writer, thinker, amazing guy. I mean, this guy, you've read and studied his work and you may not even know it. Dr. John Piper was asked what he thought about doubling down on retirement. Oh boy, maybe I should skip this one. Dr. John Piper was asked what he thought about doubling down on retirement in response to this scripture verse. Here's what he said. Quit being satisfied with the little 5% yields of pleasure that get eaten up by moth and inflation and the rust of death. Invest in the blue chip, high yield, divinely insured security of heaven. Devoting a life to material comforts and thrills is like throwing money down a rat hole, but investing a life in the labor of love that yields dividends of joy unsurpassing and unending. What legacy are you leaving? What are you teaching your children? John Calvin goes on to say, now, you can write me letters, but the truth is I am just quoting some of the best authors and thinkers in the Bible for the next couple of minutes, okay? So I just quoted Dr. Piper, I'm going to do John Calvin, I'm going to do John Wesley. So this next section, you can get as mad at me as you want. I don't care because none of this is mine. It's Jesus, Sermon on the Mount, and then 3 of the best Christian authors and thinkers that have been alive. So get mad at me if you want. I'm just quoting the people that are way smarter, including Jesus himself. John Calvin says, by this statement, Christ proves that they are unhappy men who have their treasures laid up on earth because their happiness is uncertain and of short duration. John Wesley takes it even further, and he says, he may likewise have a further view in these words, even to guard us against making anything on earth our treasure. For then a thing properly becomes our treasure when we set our affections upon it. It is not about the amount of money we have. It's about, now this is so good, it's about our appetite and what we believe the money should do. It's not about having much, it's about what you believe the money should do, and it's about your appetite. Your end goal is not to acquire as much as possible. It goes far beyond that. It's far beyond acquiring as much as possible. The vision that God has for you is far beyond, far greater, far more wonderful and glorious than you just having a little bigger house. It goes far beyond that. Its purpose is so much greater. Our resources are given to us to do as much heavenly good as possible. We are agents of God's kingdom in this world. What if, instead of competing for the nicest car, we competed for how many starving kids we could feed in a third world country? And when people come into a parking lot, we're not looking at the vehicle and the brand of car that you drive, but we come in and what we're bragging about is, I'm feeding 40 kids. What if we bragged about how many wells we put in foreign countries where, literally they don't have water to drink, they're walking miles with water jugs on their head and you dig wells and put them in. What if instead, walking in on Sunday morning, instead of flipping out, I'm guilty of this too, by the way. We flip out our next coolest whatever device. Instead of that, like we look at this and we go, what a waste of money. And we go, I put in 10 wells last year. What if what we bragged about instead? What if we bragged about, even with our children instead? Instead of decorating our kids up with the most expensive haircuts and most expensive clothes and most expensive shoes and most expensive instruments and most expensive, instead of decorating our kids like a Christmas tree, what if we bragged about what we were doing to be kingdom bringers? You see, the whole system that we live in, we call ourselves Christian, but the truth is, our eyes aren't on kingdom things. They aren't. I'm almost done. I'm going to invite Kristen up. We're going to be done in just a second. Matthew 6, 22 through 24. So let's examine your view of the resources you work for. The eye. Okay, now this is really important. How this is laid out contextually, grammatically, historically, within the text is really important. So the flow of ideas that Jesus offers is really important, right? So understanding work, understanding the right work, and now we're going to jump into this verse that almost seems like it doesn't fit, but it's in there for a reason, in order. Look at this. The eye is the lamp of the body. So if your eye is healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eye is bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light in you is in darkness, no one can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and money. Now, there's a whole series I could do on just the word money, mammon. But the idea is basically this. I love it. This is D.A. Carson. He says it really well. He said, the eye is the lamp of the body, in the sense that through the eye, the body finds its way. The eye lets in light. The eye lets in light. So the whole body is illuminated and understands the world around it better. The eye lets in light so you, as a person, can understand the world around you a little better. When you set your eyes, the hunger of your heart, on things that are wasting away, you literally grow dim to what matters most. You start to hunger for things that aren't eternally most valuable. You start to lose perspective of what's really real. What you have set your affection on determines your ability to see clearly. What you have set your affection on determines your ability to see clearly. The final section here, so make the case for work, make the case for right work, treasures in heaven, and then the third thing, make the case for right work fulfilled. Let's take a real world scenario. Your work is toil, and this is it, I'm going to be done after this. Your work is toil. The fall of man happens, and I don't know if you knew this or not, but one of the main curses that hits humanity is that the work you do won't work right. So every time you get up and go to a job where it feels like it's not quite a right fit, or things aren't going well, or why is this always an uphill battle, this never seems to play out right, and just when I think things are starting to operate well, then it all falls apart again. Welcome to literally the fall of man. Broken work. The toil of man. So let's take a real world scenario. You hate your job. You hate it. Day in and day out, you punch the clock at a place you don't like, with people you don't like, doing things you don't want to do. Most people believe that if they could just get a new job or retire, it would fix everything. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've prayed for people or gotten prayer requests. New job, retirement. New job, retirement. New job, retirement. Right now, Lord, new job, retirement. There, I've covered you for the next year. I don't need the onslaught of those every week, right? No, it's fine. You can send to me. I like praying for you. But you need to know I don't always pray the way you want me to. New job, retirement, new job, retirement. I did a bunch of research this week, literally reading through papers over and over and over again, and the best one I came across talking about retirement and our belief that it's going to make us happy, or a new job and our belief that it's going to make us happy. The best one I came across was actually Forbes article referencing some research, and it summed it up like this. But more often, if you are miserable now, you will most likely be miserable in retirement. Happiness does not just happen when you stop working. That's it. The truth is, if you lack the ability to find purpose in what you're doing now, you probably, even though you might get a fresh start and a new job feels good for a little while, or retirement is really nice when you first get into it, if you lack the ability to find purpose now, you will most likely not have purpose at the next step either. Jesus tells us what our work is to be while we are here. You are a missionary. That's what you do. Matthew 28, 18, 19, and 20, Great Commission and Great Commandment. You are literally a missionary. You are a missionary. Your primary objective at work is to proclaim the hope and love of Jesus Christ. In fact, God may want you to do that in very dark workplaces. You are a missionary. You don't abdicate missions work to the people that travel overseas. You don't abdicate missions work to pastors. You don't abdicate missions work. You are a missionary. Where you are right now, you are a missionary. You are a missionary who happens to also be a doctor. You are a missionary who happens to also work at a grocery store. You are a missionary who happens to be retired from that form of work, but you're still a missionary functionally until you die. You're a missionary. That's what you are. Even Paul himself was a tent maker, though we know very little about his tent maker job because his greatest identity was him as a missionary. You maybe don't need a new job. You need a new purpose in your job. And Jesus gave it to you if you'll check it out. But that said, I want to read Isaiah 65, 17 through 22, just a couple of verses. I want to read this to you. Because there is coming a day when perfect work will come to us. Listen to this. For behold, this is the prophecy of the new heavens and the new earth. For behold, I create new heavens and a new earth, and the former things shall not be remembered or come to mind. That verse right there, I love. All the terrible things, the frustration, the awful stuff that you're fighting right now, there is going to come a glorious day when it won't even come to mind. Verse 18, but be glad and rejoice forever in that which I create. For behold, I create Jerusalem, a society, to be a joy, and her people to be a gladness. Wouldn't that be nice to have that at work right now? I will rejoice in Jerusalem and be glad in my people. No more shall be heard in it the sound of weeping and the cry of distress. No more shall there be in it an infant who lives but a few days, or an old man who does not fill out his days. For the young man shall die 100 years old, and the sinner 100 years old shall be accursed. They shall build houses and inhabit them. I love this. They shall plant vineyards and eat their fruit. They shall not build and another inhabit. They shall not plant and another eat. For like the days of a tree shall the days of my people be, and the chosen shall long enjoy the work of their hands. So, while you are here, in this temporary assignment called earth, work for the greater mission. Do not become distracted with what's passing away. Work as a missionary. Work to make Jesus known and loved. Know a day is coming when your perfect worth in Christ will be matched with perfect work, and you will experience perfect fulfillment. That day is coming. But while you're here, you're on mission. So, do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. If you would, there's a blue card in your bulletin. Might be in the front seat in front of you. And I want you to take just a few moments. And I want you to reflect on this, okay? I mean, I don't think this would be nearly as valuable if I didn't give you a chance to reflect on this. Maybe some of you, your prayer request needs to be as simple as, God, help me to really feel and have a passion for your job in my current earthly job, right? Like, give me your heart where I'm working now, because I don't have it. Maybe that needs to be your prayer request. Give me your heart where I'm working now, because I don't have it. Maybe you need to pray, God, get my eyes off of things that are so temporary. I've been so distracted and I know it. Maybe you need to make a decision to follow Christ. And if you have a prayer request for anything, a loved one that's sick, you name it, just write it down. We do pray over you. We love you. As a staff, we gather and pray together over these cards. But take a moment and just reflect before God. Fill out the card. If God's doing anything in your heart, write it down. Go.